Kenny?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, hang on.
Yeah.
Okay, just hanging. Mark, your seat's still there.
I know, but
You always sit there.
Hi, how are you?
all right. How are you? Ken's already on the phone. Is he on the phone? Crystal, how you doing? Good. I'd like to call this special meeting of City Council to order. It's 12:01. We have Councilmember Ken Brown on the phone. I hope you're feeling better today, Mr. Brown.
Yes, I am. Thank
He's
you.
recovering from back surgery. His first day back to work was today. So I saw him yesterday at the Porch Fest, which was beautiful. So please rise for the invocation, followed by a pledge of flag. Heavenly Father, as we gather here today, let us be mindful of the people who have to pay for this budget. Let us not tax them more than we need to, nor should we have any surplus at the end of the year. It should be a one-year budget as required by law. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Ettinger? Mr. Milan?
Here.
Mr. O'Connell?
Here.
Dr. Ruggles?
Here.
Mrs. Volcano? Oh, jeez, I'm sorry, I used an old one. My apologies. Mrs.
Not here.
Sultana. I know, I used an old template. I apologize to her.
Here.
And Mayor Panto.
Here. Roll call, approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Here, aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Okay, we have the presentation of the proposed 2024 budget. As per the Home Rule Charter approved by the voters in 2007, took effect January 1, 2008. I present my recommended budget for 2024. First, I'd like to recommend and thank all the city staff who are here today. They worked hard over the last 3 months to bring this to fruition. And while it continues to be a difficult time of the year to budget, even though we're experiencing rampant growth, we've got to remember that growth is actually helped us present the budget we're presenting today. While we weathered the pandemic in a solid position, many economists still predict an uncertain climate in the economy in 2024. Inflation, recovery, supply chains, the possibility of a recession, higher capital debt costs, and all have contributed to the administration recommending a conservative budget that we will closely monitor with a clearer fiscal picture during the year, but more importantly before December 15th when you have to approve the budget. We are committed to providing our frontline public safety professionals with the resources and tools they need, and will continue to maintain and improve our public infrastructure and facilities, assuring that every resident enjoys the quality of life that is the hallmark of our community. Our goal of a clean and safe city is being met with decreasing crime every year. This budget includes a continuation of relining of our underground storm and sanitary structures. That's not sexy, but it's important. And Mr. Hopkins can give you an update on how much of that has been replaced and restored through in situ form. Approximately 95% of this total budget is fixed. Salaries, benefits, pensions, etc. So when you look at this budget, you're really looking at 5%. Our city has not been immune to the global economic impacts of the COVID-19 health pandemic. I wish I didn't have to mention COVID again, but unfortunately we're still feeling some of the effects from it. However, thanks to smart planning during the previous 3 years, we've been able to mitigate many of those impacts, keep fees stable for our residents, and still maintain healthy fund balances for any unforeseen circumstances. By the way, our balanced reserves for general fund is probably at 14 or 15% of the 10% city council required by resolution. We're at just shy of $5 million, and probably with last year's surplus would probably be over that. The national economy remains in a precarious situation as the United States Federal Reserve Bank attempts to slow the economy to curb high inflation. However, those actions have seen interest rates climb for everything from automobiles to homes, and those costs of debt has slowed house sales and some economic development projects. Fortunately, all of our economic development projects continue to move forward, although some are delayed due to this situation. We will continue to monitor the national economy to determine if actions needed to be taken if the nation dips into a recession next year. Despite an uncertain economic environment, Easton continues to grow. Although we are excited to welcome new residents and businesses to our town, our goal is not to change from the small, historic, and walkable city that we are. Financially, my proudest moment is that our administration kept Easton out of Act 47 in 2008, and we increased our bond rating when other cities were experiencing decreases. We have also pulled the city through the greatest recession of 2008 and the COVID-19 global pandemic and did things that made us even better. Maintaining a balanced budget while working to meet the service needs of the community continues to be and to require careful planning, especially in the light of the twin threats of inflation and recession. The city experiences the same challenges as businesses and residents, with rising cost of goods and service and labor shortages straining the city's ability to sustain service levels to the community. Like the previous 15 budgets, the 2024 is balanced and responsible, and like the past 15 years, it keeps property taxes level for the 16th year in a row and puts most of the increases on our visitors, not our residents. I would like to refer to our ability to win grants and support from our county, state, and federal partners as OPM. You've heard me mention it before, other people's money. To date, this has amounted to over $100 million in grants awarded and an economic development program that has witnessed and has planned for $1 billion in investment in our city. These grants have enabled us to make capital improvements in our infrastructure, mainly our streets and parks. That is true of my philosophy for city budgeting as well. Whenever possible, my recommendation is to place the financial burden on others, rather than our residents, many of whom cannot afford any increase. While some of our city's revenues are still in the process of returning to pre-pandemic levels, we are fortunate to have federal and state funds to support existing programs and services. This budget continues to focus on the 4 shared priorities of City Council and this administration: community safety, economic recovery, livability, and affordable housing. Given inflation to existing costs, the sunsetting of federal one-time resources used to ongoing needs, the elevated level of deferred infrastructure maintenance, and the demand for resources continues to surpass the financial resources of the city. We're not wealthy, nor will we ever be. We're landlocked. And I'd like to say that Easton is on a milestone, a timeline continuum where we're 50 years ahead of maybe only 40 years now, that are ahead of the suburbs. The suburbs are growing, and that's great. And growth, you can maintain taxes. So taxes are at 5 mills, 6 mills, and they're very happy about that. That's great. But once they become built out, the only way you can grow is by increasing your taxes. And right now they're still growing. They have room to grow, but I see some of our suburbs are becoming pretty much strained. So how do we balance this budget that has experienced more than $1.2 million in trash collection and disposal, as well as normal increases of more than $561,000 that occur every year? The 2024 budget is $1.256 million more, or 3.4% higher than the 2023 budget. Of this amount, $1.2 million is attributed to the increase in our trash collection contracts. Therefore, there is a $561,000 increase in our salaries and wages. Therefore, this budget is really less than 1% over the 2023 budget, but for trash and mandatory increases. The 2024 shows some positive areas of growth, mostly tied to our economic development efforts with the expansion of the tax base and residents getting back to work. The reality of this budget is that we cannot continue to absorb the increase in our costs, especially trash collection. 3 years ago, you will recall that we absorbed a $600,000 increase in trash collection. We were able to do it 3 years ago. We're not able to do that this year. Prior to recommending an increase in our rates, we looked at several alternatives, including bringing trash collection back into the city with city employees and city equipment. That didn't work either. Therefore, to balance the city's budget, we are recommending a $5 per month increase in trash and recycling, which represents approximately $500,000 of the $1.2 million increase. So the residents are paying less than 50%. Just keep that in mind. This keeps us in line also with the surrounding communities, which have also seen increases in their trash collection and don't accept anything they put out at the curb. Unlike other municipalities, 50% of our trash today is going to be borne by the residents, but another 50% will be borne by the visitors. The remainder of the increase will be borne by increasing our the recommendation is that we increase our parking meter rates to $1.50 per hour, similar to other cities like Allentown and Bethlehem, and lower than many others, like Scranton and Harrisburg. I know that this is hard to accept because I thought about it all weekend, and Roger knows we had breakfast this morning. It really was on my mind because the administration's recommendation was $2 an hour, and I just didn't want to see it double. So we had an emergency session this morning, and we were able to balance the budget with $1.50, and that's what we're recommending. Be mindful that anything you recommend as a decrease in revenue, you've got to decrease expenses. And everything you recommend as an increase in expenses, you have to increase in revenue, obviously. We are also, at the same time, however, recommending that we lower the garage rates from what they are now currently to 50 cents an hour after 5 p.m. That is remarkable. I mean, so we're doing exactly what the parking studies have told us to do, that the parking on the street needs to be more expensive than parking in the garages, so that you flip the visitors into the garages rather onto the streets. But you will also be getting, from the parking summit, we are also planning on presenting City Council changes to the parking ordinance based on the recommendation of the parking summit that we'll schedule over the next month and a half. These will include changes to the residential parking permit program, an employee parking garage program so that we get the employees off the street and into the garages, and a validation program for customers so that people come down for their dinner and have a couple drinks and they get a bill for $100. They may, the restaurant owner may give them 2 validation coins for them to pay for 2 hours of parking. So we'll be looking at all that, so that it's not just an increase in parking rates, it's also how to efficiently manage the parking program. Making street parking more than parking garage has been the same in every study we've had done over the last 50 years. Our rates it's hard to put them up. We doubled them to $1 maybe 10 years ago, and then now we're putting them up another 50%. But like that, we are exploring overnight parking in the garage to make it more feasible for our residents who live downtown to park in the garage rather than on the street. The problem is right now is, as you know, we have more and more people that live downtown working from home. So their car never moves. They may move on, the young people may move it on a Saturday or Sunday, but the retirees are there for days at a time. So we'll be recommending changes to the parking ordinance, which includes that they're going to have to be susceptible to and have to abide by the 72-hour state law, which right now they're exempted from. But like previous budgets, this administration, we also look at our goals for the next 4 years. Some of these goals are to monetize our largest assets to save our residents money and help us lower the tax burden. Make no mistake about it, the city every year will have a hard time budgeting for the increases that occur automatically. Even with the growth in our economy and our population, I'm concerned about the financial future of the city. We need real permanent solutions to ensure the long-term success of our city and other cities throughout the Commonwealth. Unfortunately, those permanent solutions will only come when elected officials in Harrisburg decide to take the time to make this an issue in earnest. It hasn't been. I doubt that I will see in my lifetime the change is needed. Heck, we lobbied for radar to make our city's streets safer for the last 30 years, and we still don't have it. So the state legislature just doesn't get it. Our first responsibility is to our taxpayers in the city, period, not to the persons that live outside of our city and chose to move out. Our city provides for the low income. We shelter the homeless. We look to provide affordable housing, while the surrounding suburbs can brag about their low millage rate, but do little to address the social issues of our society. And I'm not complaining about the suburbs. We have a great working relation with the suburbs. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that cities, when 40% of your population is low income and can't afford any increase, and then you go out to the suburbs and they brag about their 6 mills of taxes, but they're getting their water at a cheaper rate because of the city of Easton, not because of their plant or anything else, but we built that plant. And we got to monetize that. We got to look to monetize those things so that our rates, our water millage rates can come down, and maybe our water rates have to increase. But during 2024, we will also evaluate these assets to see how we can monetize it for our residents. We first address our residents' needs, not anybody else's needs. But yet water and sewer are regional. And the ones that are not getting the benefit of that regionalization are the city residents. So the actions of the city in the mid-1970s, this all occurred right between Mayor Ashton and Mayor Schultz's administrations, was that our suburban friends use our water and wastewater facilities because the state didn't want every municipality to have their own water and sewer plants. So we have regionalization. Well, the regional facility that we own is owned by the city of Easton and operated by the Easton Area Suburban Water Authority. It's not monetizing the city. So we will be meeting to renegotiate the Easton Suburban Water Authority lease or sell the water facilities. On October 6th, we have a meeting with the Suburban Water Authority and our I think it's October 6th, right? And our consultants. We have an outside consultant evaluate, which puts our assets at $200 million. Imagine that. If you were able to monetize that and the interest would not go against the principal, but if you just use the interest every year to fund the city, imagine what we could do. We'd probably be at 6 mills just like the townships. But Instead, we allow the township residents to get lower water rates than what they would normally have. The value of our $1.2 million lease that we lease these facilities to, remember, we have $200 million worth of assets. We go all the way out to Route 33, and we have $200 million worth of assets. We lease it for $1.2 million a year. Basically, our consultants have valued that lease at $7 million a year. At the time, it may have been a good decision for the city to lease at $1 million with an escalator, but today it's not. When you think about the water rates in the city and the suburbs, they're lower compared to what people pay for real estate taxes. So my recommendation, and hopefully I'm here, but my recommendation would be that whatever the water rates go up, we decrease the property tax. And that would help everybody. So that's what we're looking, that's our number one goal, is to work on that. And if the city would decide to sell the water facilities for $200 million, I would say that there's two uses. One, to use the interest every year to subsidize the operating budget, or two, put it towards our unfunded liability of our pensions, which would save the residents money every year. Along with the same theme of keeping kids off the streets and giving them a place to learn and recreate is my personal goal that I've had for the last 15 years, that is building, in partnership with the Eastern Area Community Center, a new community center and senior center in the West Ward. There are two neighborhoods that are deprived of any type of community facility. One is West Ward and one is College Hill. Both of them deserve a community center, but if we could build one, I'd be happy. Several years ago, we lost both of our county-run senior centers, so we don't even have a senior center in the city, making it very inconvenient for seniors to get to Forks Township, where it's located. My recommendation is that this community center would also have a seniors component, that where people could go, seniors could go and recreate during the day, socialize, and have a nice lunch. That's what they used to have at Shaw School and right on Center Square. Both of them the county closed. While Centennial Park was our first priority to look at that location, we started talking to the residents and they made a lot of sense. You only have two major parks in the West Ward, Centennial and Vanderveer. So why would you take one of your parks away and build a community center? So we're looking for another space for that. So we went after grants for Centennial Park and put together over $300,000 so far with a $100,000 match from the city. It's our hope that we could plan at this winter and actually have the construction start in the spring. But it's my hope, personal hope, that we'd also have part of that as a splash pad. And unfortunately, that is expensive. But I believe instead of opening our hydrants in the West Ward, we could just have a splash pad, and people would like that. Kids would like that even better. This budget also continues to make major investments in other parks. The soon-to-be recommended for naming the Scott Ransom Press Box is under construction at Heil Field, and the design of Centennial Park, as I said, will be done during the winter, with construction expected in 2024 spring. We are also recommending a $50,000 in this budget, a $50,000 annual contribution to the Carl Sterner Arts Trail groups to assist them in operation of this valuable city asset, which is getting more and more every participation every year. An additional $70,000 is budgeted for capital improvements in our other parks and programs, including Lackner Park, Bob Root Park, and the Hackett Park. All of these improvements to these public neighborhood facilities are being paid for by the Open Space and Recreation Fund, so they don't have an impact on the general fund, but they are budgeted to be done next year out of the Open Space and Recreation Fund, which is being paid for by all the development going in downtown. One of the biggest financial challenges we have is the city's pension liabilities. We've done a much better job on our investments and added non-resident EIT that is added each year, but our mandatory municipal obligation, even though it decreased a little bit last year, because last year was a great year in the stock market. This year we are contributing more than almost $8 million of general fund to the mandatory municipal obligation, the MMO. Or put another way, that's worth about 20 mils. So instead of at 24.95 mils, we'd be at 4.95 or 5 mils the way they are in the suburbs. Our pensions legacy costs are killing the city, and they continue to grow every year. Our third goal is to expand our tax base through our successful economic development program. Simultaneously, we will continue our pursuit of providing affordable housing for our residents. No one else in the area is doing it. The three mayors get together and we talk about affordable housing. But the real affordable housing could take place in all the suburbs that have vacant property, vacant land, where they could build affordable housing. We're building it on infill construction where we don't have room. Imagine if instead of 100 market rate houses in a subdivision, they put 100 affordable houses. It's not happening, and it's not going to happen. It's just cities are expected to take care of our poor. Our state did it. Our state did it when they closed Allentown State Hospital. All those residents are now in our city. We have the mental health and the alcoholic-related health problems of the state. The state said, "Oh, we could save all this money by closing all the state hospitals." Yeah, but those Americans, they're Americans. They had to go somewhere. They came to cities because we have services. The administration will work with council to update the pension ordinance in the city as well, because that has not been updated in about 20 years. Our third goal is to continue to expand the tax base through our successful economic development program. Simultaneously, we will continue providing affordable housing for our residents. Currently, there are more than 60 units to be built and another 55 already occupied. And that 55 or 60 units to be built is actually now closer to 100. City Council has approved the proposal to evaluate our 3 fire stations, and in particular, South Side Fire Station, which dates back to the 19th century. Yeah, 19th, not 20th, 19th. While we have apparatus ordered for the department and we're keeping up with the apparatus, including a $1.7 million tiller truck and an $800,000 pumper and $600,000 worth of radios, we need to turn our attention to the physical stations. You will receive a presentation on rehabilitation versus new construction in the second quarter of 2024 with a recommendation or a recommended plan of action. Once our fire stations are addressed, we're not done. We then have to go turn our attention to 500 garage. The Public Works Municipal Garage is in a floodplain. But more importantly, it's just old, and it's not equipped to handle what we do today. So that is an area that has to be on our radar as well. Also on our radar is once they are complete, we would turn our attention to the municipal garage. For example, right now we have an evidence building that we're looking at the quarry north of Route 611 north, just north of Eddyside, for the construction of a new evidence building. We were chastised by the Department of Justice at the last flood because we lost really valuable evidence that we kept down at a building in a 500 garage. It was flooded, and cars that were sequestered and paperwork was gone. Easton continues to experience a rapid increase in unsheltered homelessness and homeless individuals across the city. Unsheltered Americans continue to live in unsafe and unhygienic conditions, with many suffering from untreated substances with disorders and mental health issues. The state and federal governments have turned their back on these Americans and have left their care to the cities. We must do more. So one of our goals doesn't help shelter them, but helps them really in an important way. Public bathrooms. We need public bathrooms back again in downtown Easton, where the homeless usually congregate because of the services provided. They go to Safe Harbor, they go to Third Street Alliance, they go to Project, and they go down, they're downtown, they're in our intermodal all the time getting out of the inclement weather. We need to build affordable housing and public bathrooms. Budgeting in any city today is difficult, and city residents should note that this is the longest reprieve in rising taxes as a result of sound budgeting and continued growth. It's unheard of. I have former mayors asking me all the time how we're doing it. We're doing it not only by growing, but by managing our money and cutting our budget. And unfortunately, it doesn't get any easier. The only thing I could say is if it was these 2 projects, the bookends as I call them, the Marquee is started, the Confluence is going through a redesign, which I think everybody will be happier with, but they're not going to be online in 2025 as we thought. It's probably going to be 2025 and 2026. Those projects bring in almost $2 million in tax revenue, property taxes, not counting earned income tax. So I remind City Council that this is now your budget. Louis presented it to me on September 1st. I presented it and worked with it, presented it to you on October 2nd. Now it's your budget, and I remind you that you need to finalize it by December 15th according to the charter. My administration pledges to work with you and provide you with whatever data you need to make these sound decisions. As mayor, it is my privilege to continue to provide quality service and investment in the future of Easton. However, a look ahead shows that we are heading towards deficit spending, decreasing our general fund reserve. I should mention that over the weekend and then this morning at this morning's budget meeting, the delta between raising trash only 50% and raising parking meters from $2 to $1.50, that delta that's needed will be provided by ARPA funds. This is the last year we can use ARPA funds. The American Rescue Plan was $20.6 million to the city of Easton. We cannot forget about the impact that that has had on small businesses, the homeless, and on our city budget, because revenue replacement is one of them. And we're using it again this year, and that's it. We can't use it anymore. So we're trying to think about what would be best for next year's budget already, because we present that to you sometime after the first of the year. We'll present you with the budget for 2026. So thank you very much, and thank you for the public that are here. Thank you to the staff. You've been a great job, done a great job for us. We appreciate it. We don't thank our city staff and employees enough. I tried to get around and thank them. I saw 3 of them at the Porch Fest yesterday with the city equipment. That was really popular. And I thank all of you for city council, and we'll be here for the next month and a half to answer any questions. Crystal and Frank, any questions that you may have in the next couple months, if you want to meet, to go over the budget, to show you how it's put together, we'll be more than happy to do that. Thank you.
Mayor, do you want to announce when the budget sessions are going to be?
Go ahead, you may.
The first budget review session is scheduled for Tuesday, October 17th at 6 p.m. The next one is Tuesday, October 24th, also at 6 p.m. And then the last one is Tuesday, November 7th at 6 p.m. However, if in the interim they need another one, it would be held on Tuesday, November 21st at 5:30. That would be prior to our regular council meeting that's scheduled for Tuesday because of the holiday.
Thank you. At this time, we'll take any public comment on any item. Doesn't have to be any specifically to the agenda. Seeing no comments, I'll ask the
Move to adjourn.
move to adjourn and second. Moved and second, Madam Clerk, roll call.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
And Mr. Milan?
Mr. Brown, I'll have a budget delivered to you. We should have, Carlton, you want to go, you have them? Want to give them out? He's coming in tomorrow for it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Carlton, you can give it to me. He's gonna come in tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, Kenny.
There's no elections. You have one election.